Hi, I'm Sonia Luna, CEO and founder of Aviva Spectrum. My guest today, which I'm super excited about, is Professor Venkat Iyer. Welcome, Venkat.
Thank you, Sonia. Thanks for having me on the show.
We are so glad that you're with us today because I came across your research. I was on the IIA's website, and I get pinged a lot for a lot of different things. And I was kind of going through this publication about job satisfaction, and it drove me to kind of dig deeper a little bit, because when I came across the research project, I was really impressed by the actual scope and the detail in it, especially seeing that you had, I think it was something like 1,600 respondents providing insight on what were their thoughts of, what is true job satisfaction for an internal auditor. And in your research, you discuss this term, and I'm going to say I quoted it, organizational identification. Can you talk a little bit about organizational identification, and also why is it important?
Oh, yeah, definitely. First, I want to acknowledge the support of the IIA for this project. As you said, we did receive more than 1,600 respondents, filling out their survey instruments. Now, definitely, without IIA's help, I don't think I would have gotten that many, responses. Before I start, I just want to say a few things about my background. You told me about, my educational background. I was also an internal auditor prior to getting my Ph.D. And, I really enjoyed my work as an internal auditor because I thought or I felt that I was making a difference to the success of the company. And that's one of the reasons why I started this project. I wanted to see what makes someone a happy employee, who would go to bat for the company. Now, when I talk about this organizational identification, I bring in the analogy of the sports fan. We're all familiar with how fanatic some of these fans are, So, if you identify with the sports team, you typically feel a sense of accomplishment when they win, and when they lose, we are miserable. And these teams could be from your hometown or from the colleges that you went to, etc. So, in the same way, an employee feels a certain sense of pride when his or her employer is successful in business, or is known as the best company to work for. For example, we have all these lists in magazines, and so when you see that you are working for a company that is topping that list, you feel a sense of pride. Again, this is, to some extent, we call organizational identification. The opposite is true as well. Obviously, somebody, you don't want to work for a company that has been, involved in some shady deals, etc. Things like that.
It's kind of like the somebody who could have worked, such as myself, maybe at Arthur Andersen at one point in my career, but so I get a couple of different responses when I say that. For those people who know about what happened to Arthur Andersen, I get from all the way from the left to the right in terms of, that was the firm that did blah blah blah, or what was it like? And my typical response is, the people that I worked with were very ethical, very outstanding people, great training. I had a great experience. It was a great firm, and a few bad apples kind of ruined it for the whole bunch. And I'm sure it's true for an organization such as people who worked at Enron. But you're right in terms of HR managers and heads of we call it the Department of Drama. When you audit the payroll, they have to kind of sometimes coax the CEO to say, it behooves the organization to try to be on the top 10 list of the best places to work at. And you did
Definitely.
mention there's a ton of different ways of scoring. There's a ton of different places to get that done, and there is this indirect relationship of if an employee's there working at that company and they make the list, promoting it, making it a big deal, they feel like they've had an indirect impact to the results of that. Good, bad, or indifferent, but it isn't, and it's part of their what I call personal branding, right? So when you go to a cocktail party, most people want to know, what do you do at work, right? And who do you work for? So that's part of that individual's personal branding, is when they explain themselves of what they do and what they're about. Saying something like, "Well, I work for Google," I'm sure that employee has an easier time in terms of promoting themselves, but also that brand of Google is such a high value brand. So what in terms of internal audit, and I'm glad that you shared your past experience, because it's one thing that resonated with me in what you stated was adding value. That was the first thing that caught my attention, because I think that's what keeps me motivated, passionate, is I do think I add value. I think I add a different perspective of how an organization can move forward to be more competitive. But what do you think organizations can do to improve job satisfaction of internal auditors?
Yeah, definitely. Let me come to that in a bit. I just want to continue and say a little bit about this organizational identification, because it's very, very important, for a company to promote this, because the reason is this is directly related to job satisfaction. The identification is more of a psychological construct. How well you are attached. How strongly you are attached to an organization, and this is associated, or this is related to job involvement, job satisfaction, and also the intent to remain. See, the thing is, a lot of companies spend enormous amount of money for hiring and training and making sure that the people are happy, and to retain the auditors and their employees. And you don't want to see your the people who you have trained leave after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So you want to keep them happy as long as you can. So job satisfaction is going to be very important to do that. And when I was talking about this, one of the internal auditors said that, for example, providing the right coaching and training, mentoring, they said will build high level of job identification and satisfaction. What we find in our research is when the auditor rises through the ranks, their identification increases. That's not a surprise, obviously, because you have more time to learn about the company, and and obviously, if you are not happy, you would have already left. So people who are there longer, they tend to know the company better, and they have definitely more things to say about the company.
Right, and not having that mentoring aspect to your position, especially as you move up, there's going to be some gaps in terms of the level of job satisfaction of where you thought you should be, let's say as an internal audit manager, and where you currently are, without a good mentoring or coaching or training process. You start having this expectation gap. I feel like I should be more aligned or attached to this organization, but I'm not seeing key results of them making that the best investment in that person, in me, if I were a manager.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's very important. Mentoring is a very key element in most organizations. To integrate the junior staff into the company. I'm sure that most companies do have this process. We also find, for example, I'm going to talk more about this later, but using internal audit as a training ground for management, that seems to have a high impact on their job satisfaction, definitely. And the same way, we think, when the standards tell us that internal auditors should be independent and we should have an environment that supports their autonomy, they actually improve the job satisfaction for internal auditors too. It's just not their objectivity, but they are also more satisfied when they are given the tools and the environment where they can perform independently, and there is no interference from the top management or no pressure being put on them.
Yeah, I like to call it, it's good to have positive pressure. So if you align the main objective or main objectives of the internal audit group. So, for example, number of high-quality audit reports, right? So it's, setting a goal, but you're not telling them they have to reach a conclusion on the reports. You're just saying it's got to be high quality. There's got to be at least some volume coming out. Another would be, either time or dollar impact to the operations in terms of improvements. Setting a goal. It doesn't matter. The organization doesn't say what it is, but you should come up with at least 5 per year. It doesn't mean they get implemented, but we want to hear ideas to be at least vetted out. And so it's a little bit of a performance pressure, but it's not a pressure that would compromise someone's ethics or values. It's saying, that we got to have some benchmark to have some alignment that can strategically add more value to the organization above and beyond just compliance.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was an internal auditor, that's exactly what we used to do. Because whenever we go to audit a particular function or a site, the one thing that we look for is how do we add value? In other words, what kind of suggestions can we give so that the company can implement and perhaps save some money in that process, either through increased productivity or maybe reduction in wastage, etc. So that's something that is always at the back of our mind. And one other thing is, for example, the chief audit executives, when they report functionally to the audit committee, rather than to management, that provides them with more positive, they are more positive about their workplaces, or they are more satisfied. Okay, and that's something that came through in our research.
Well, this has been a wonderful, compelling interview, Venkat, and I just want to thank you so much. I'm very confident. I know that our listeners gained just a ton of value from your research on job satisfaction among internal auditors. Thank you, Venkat, for coming on our radio show.
Oh, thank you so much.
This is Sonia Luna, CEO and founder of Aviva Spectrum, signing off.